Greetings and welcome to In the Loop Weekend Ag Talk, brought to you by Alphen Insurance Agency, the home of Policy Plus. We're recording a little early this week, going to be on the road this afternoon. We're going to jump in and look at markets on Friday morning and see what things are looking like. Early Friday morning, May corn was at 6.31 even. December corn was at 5.50 and 3/4. May wheat was at 6.68. July wheat at 6.80. May cotton 77.58, while December cotton started off the Friday morning of trade at 79.26. May soybeans started off at 14.06 and 3/4, and November beans were at 12.50 and a half. When you insure with Alphen Insurance Agency, you get Policy Plus. Give us a call today. We'll be glad to tell you about Policy Plus, and we'd be glad to tell you about Whole Farm Revenue Protection. Whole Farm Revenue Protection provides a risk management safety net for all commodities on the farm under one insurance policy. This insurance plan is tailored for any farm up to $17 million in insured revenue, including farms with specialty or organic commodities, both crops and livestock, or those marketing to local, regional, farm identity preserved, specialty, or direct markets. Whole Farm Revenue Protection protects your farm against loss of farm revenue that you expect to earn from commodities produced during the insurance period, commodities you buy for resale during the insurance period, all commodities on the farm except timber, forest products, animals for sport or show, and pets. This policy also gives you replant coverage, and it is highly subsidized. Be sure to give us a call today, ask us about this, and maybe we can put it to work for you next year. When we look at U.S. ag news, we've had a busy week and lots of things to talk about. Wheat is cheap versus corn. Spot month SRW wheat futures posted fresh lows this week and finished at a premium of just 30 cents per bushel to spot corn futures on Wednesday. This spread has not been this tight since the summer of 2021. Wheat can replace corn as a feed grain in some instances, and it may begin to do so in some areas of the country. Falling wheat prices have likely had some negative impact on the corn market. Traders tend to watch these spreads closely. The woes of the U.S. wheat export program are well documented. Perhaps wheat will find a different demand base domestically. When we look at exports for the week, we'll start with corn. Exports came in at 1.381 million metric tons, which was up 23% from last week and up 57% from the 4-week average. Big takers on the week were Japan, Colombia, South Korea, and China was a huge taker on old crop corn with over 2,245,000 metric tons of purchases. When we look at wheat, exports came in at 361,600 metric tons, which was up 44% week over week. Big takers were China, Mexico, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Ecuador. When we look at soybean exports for the week, the total was 704,300 metric tons, which was down 8% week over week, with China, the Netherlands, Egypt, Algeria, and Mexico being the largest takers. Exports for the week on cotton totaled 272,500 running bales. Top destinations included Vietnam, Pakistan, Turkey, China, and Mexico. This is a couple weeks old, but worth bringing up. USDA announced $29 million to increase American-made fertilizer production. USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack announced that the department received $3 billion in applications from more than 350 independent businesses from 49 states and 2 territories for the first 2 rounds of a new grant program to add innovative domestic fertilizer production capacity. USDA also announced the first $29 million in grant offers under the first round that focused on projects that can come online in the near term. The grants will help independent businesses increase production of American-made fertilizer, which will spur competition, give U.S. farmers more choices and fair prices to reduce their dependence on unreliable foreign sources like Russia and Belarus. Valsic made this announcement at the Commodity Classic down in Orlando last month. USDA's cattle on feed report came out last Friday and showed that all U.S. cattle on feed as of March 1 at 95.5% of the inventory last year and right around the pre-report trade estimates. February placements were at 92.8%. The USDA will release its annual prospective planning and quarterly grain stocks report next Friday, and we'll give you an update when that comes out. We'll start to see more acreage estimates from private groups ahead of this report. This week, S&P Global pegged U.S. corn acres at 90.9 million acres. U.S. farmers planted 88.6 million acres of corn last year. Soybean acreage was pegged at 88.2 million, while farmers planted 87.5 million acres of soybeans last year. In its February Ag Outlook Farm projections, USDA pegged the corn crop at 91 million and soybeans were pegged at 87.5 million. More info to come once this report is released. The Fed raised rates again this week. The 0.25% hike to the Fed fund rate brings the effective rate to 4.875%, the highest since September 2007. The effective Fed fund rate was just 0.375% 1 year ago. This was the 9th consecutive meeting in which the Fed has raised rates. The majority of Fed members believe perhaps one more hike is appropriate in 2023. Most members see a year-end rate of 5.125%. When we look in world ag news, Brazilian group Agro Consultants spent 3 months touring the country's soybean areas. They increased their Brazilian soybean production estimate to 155 million metric tons from 153 million metric tons previously. USDA's number estimate is at 153. The group cut its estimate for the country's corn crop to 125.5 million metric tons from 130.9 previously. USDA's estimate is at 125. Larger production in Brazil could help to offset some of the massive losses that are likely in Argentina. The Ukrainian Ag Ministry reported spring planting season has begun earlier than normal, with 26,000 hectares of spring wheat already planted. Ukraine's Farm Ministry forecast 9 million metric ton lighter grain harvest of 44.3 million metric tons in 2023. Of that, most of it is forecasted to be corn production. Ukrainian grain exports are down versus the same period last year, and that's no surprise, of course. From July 1st through March 22nd, Ukraine Ag Ministry data estimates that the country shipped 36.3 million metric tons of grain versus 44.8 during a similar period last year. The decline of only 19% can probably be considered a victory considering the circumstances of war over in that region. The Black Sea Grain Initiative was officially extended for another 120 days over the weekend despite Russian objections. Turkey president plans a phone call with Russia's Putin. The Turkish president plans to discuss the Black Sea grain deal, which has been extended until May 18th. Russia continues to threaten to exit from the deal if demands are not met. Russia has said repeatedly that it wants sanction relief regarding related industries, including banking, insurance, shipping, and logistics. I'll be reading from the Carolina Journal, this article written by Zach Rounceville. Paper mill, which has been operating for more than 100 years and is integral to the economy of Canton, is slated to close by June of 2023. This will force around 1,300 workers currently employed at the mill to seek new jobs. According to Haywood County officials, this was a decision no one saw coming and has left a small mountain town just west of Asheville searching for answers. Carolina Journal spoke with Zeb Smathers, the mayor of Canton, who said the closure of the mill is akin to losing a family member. "We've had a death in the family," he said. "I had a mill worker tell me that. That's exactly what it is and exactly what it feels like. Like a death, you've just experienced the numbness and shock of a sudden loss that's just happened out of the blue. I had to call the governor's office and let them know. It's shameful that we had to find out through social media that the workers were losing their job. I saw workers coming in with tears in their eyes, and I am heartbroken. I hear stories of kids in the school system crying because they were going to have to move away from their friends so their parents could find jobs elsewhere. There's just sadness and hurt. It comes down to numbness and shock of what has happened, Smathers said. It's not just 1,300 jobs, it's the blue collar identity. We have worked our way back economically over the last decade by embracing our blue collar heritage. Now I've got a few thoughts about this mill closing and how it hit home to me. I've always called the forestry industry farmers of the forest since I was enrolled in forestry in the fall of 1986 at Hope County High School. This was my first ag education class at school and where I began my FFA career. Let's dateline back to 1980 something in Rayford, North Carolina. We were a small town in the Sandhills region of North Carolina that was known for turkeys and cotton. Burlington Industries was a major employer for our county and many other counties across the Tar Heel State. Clemson and NCSU College of Textile graduates would end up in Rayford at some point of their career and work at the huge Burlington Industries Rayford plant. The community was full of support industries that thrived due to the big cotton mill. Schools, parks, and many other things enjoyed by citizens were financially supported by the Rayford plant. Then enter NAFTA. NAFTA was supported by the cotton mills in the early years, but now that they look back, they see over 86,000 jobs have left the region due to NAFTA. It seems that when something passes to help one, it always hurts another. Let's look to the early 90s when I began my time at NC State. Dozens of young men from Haywood and Buckham counties landed in Raleigh to further their education. That's when I first learned of the big mill in Canton and the little mill in Waynesville. Champion paper was king in their part of North Carolina, just like Burlington Industries was king in my part of the state. As time went on, I began to learn more about the culture of Western North Carolina and the pride they had in someday working at the same mill on the same machine as their fathers and grandfathers. Many of these guys went home and lived that dream. They made excellent money and raised their children like they had been raised. Good, honest, blue collar living in the beautiful mountains of North Carolina. When the closing of the mill was announced, I was also moved to emotions, and one day hundreds of lives were forever changed with the announcement that the mill would close sometime in 2023. Many don't always view the forestry industry as agriculture, but I sure do. They're close brothers to the farmers, surviving on the natural resources that God has given us to survive and thrive for many years. I went through school with these men and found out that they were so much alike. They like to work hard and they value family and community. They dedicated their lives to an industry that has now abandoned them due to the decision of big corporate America, much like those who labored for the steel and textile industries that helped build America, then were sent home and tasked with starting over. Not sure there's anything we can do to reverse this decision to close the mill, but as brothers and sisters of those affected by the decision, there are a few things we can do. Number one, we can pray for these families and communities. Number two, shop local, buy local, and support small businesses wherever you live. As Americans, we must get back to looking after ourselves and not relying on the government and other countries to supply us with what we need. NAFTA forever changed my hometown community, but they were able to rebound. The mill closing will forever change the communities around Canton and Waynesville, but they will rebound and be stronger than ever. You may ask, what is the scope of this decision? $2 million in city taxes paid to Canton, $140 million spent in Canton by the mill and employees, $500 million in surrounding areas that were generated by chip mills and logging. Every one job in the Canton mill created 1.2 jobs outside the mill gate. We shouldn't ever take for granted the things we have in life. Things can change quickly. Live in the moment every day and live life to the fullest. lend a hand to those in need, and always be there for your neighbors. We all need an encouraging word from time to time. Stay strong, Canton. Stay strong. Thank you for providing U.S. made paper for so many generations. Well, thank you again for tuning in to In the Loop Weekend Ag Talk, brought to you by Alphen Insurance Agency, the home of Policy Plus. We hope you have a great weekend. And again, a special thank you to those who help feed and clothe the world. Remember, make mental health a priority at home and at your operation. Make time for yourself and make time for those around you. Give us a call. We'll come to you so you can focus on family and farming. You guys and gals have a great weekend, and thanks for tuning in.